One more interesting thing I'm going to add is the private equity. The private equity has a huge chunk of money that they're waiting to invest, right, and waiting for the right deal. So I think my question is going to be for you, Varun. What do you think are the key trends which are going to be in the private equity space? And how do you see private equity playing a critical role around the Indian M&A deal scape?
I think this is a very good question in the context as we stand, especially the geopolitical position. Now, I think to answer that, we'll just throw a bit of macro numbers and then you can come back to it. India broadly $3.5 trillion. First $1 trillion, we took 60 years to reach there. Next $1 trillion, we took 12 years to reach there. And the last trillion is from 2014 to 2019. It's like 5 years. Now, if that is the movement, now as 2023, next 10 years, we are targeting a $5 trillion mark by 2017, and I would say a 10 trillion by 2030. And I say this because we lead that policy think tank at the government level also. So we are into a lot of policy think tanks. So just imagine in the next 2 years, you're talking about that kind of wealth creation, which has not happened in the last 73 years. And out of this, you talked about private equity dry powder. You have $3.2 trillion with global PE and VC funds looking for a market. Now the question is, which is the market? Now there are top 5 economies, right? US is growing at 1%, China 4.5%, Germany is under growth, Japan is hardly 1%. India is the only bright spot, which is 6.5% growing. And they say that even it's projected out of this $3.2 trillion, they're saying around 600 billion is a known number in a lot of the reports, but I think $1 trillion. Just imagine the kind of M&A activity and the private equity investments is going to create. I think India is the space to be in, and it's great to be a PE and M&A lawyer right now. Just last coupled with the fact, and I think this is the reason why the foreign law firms have seen through this, and they're trying to tap in this market, and that's the context. They don't want to go into courts. This is where the dollar lies.
Coming on to the election point, that's something which definitely is going to play an important part. Considering that we are hardly a year away from elections, how do you see the M&A trend and the IPO trend moving? From September onwards, let's see, which is just 6 months before the elections takes place. So, any thoughts around that, Varun?
Yeah. So my view, I think, is bit contrary to some views here. I'm very optimistic, and I think the reason probably is also that I'm a lawyer plus running my own firm, so I'm an entrepreneur also. And I see the macros, and we see the numbers are not saying it's negative. It's only holding. It's a bit of a hold up because of the Ukraine war situation. But as I said, these issues of corporate governance or tax issues, these are not macro level issues. These are operational issues. This at a macro level, when you get the big dollar, there's $3.2 trillion of dry powder with private equity funds. And India is growing at 6.5. There's no way this is not going to trickle down. Election year, I think if anybody heard the PM speech at the US Congress, that would set the tone actually. Categorically, he is mentioned, and this is the first time, which is coming from directly. It was indirect. That Quad is going to be acting and India is going to change supply chains. It's a statement by the PM at the floor of the US Congress, which means it's not only the new economy, it's going to open up the entire manufacturing sector. So, and that is good. A statement of that effect will have a trickle down effect. So I am of the view that even if it's the election year, Apple has entered. Apple is a $3 trillion company itself. They've entered India in the election year. So I see a trickle down happening, and this is going to open up very fast.
We're all optimistic, but there has to be a caution which needs to be surrounded around this optimism as well. And yeah, we are all optimistic about the M&A traction and tax changes and commercial regulatory changes which are being made. But yes, that point of caution needs to be there.
I am not optimistic. I'm saying this is going to be unprecedented. Never has happened $2 trillion in next 3 years. Never ever. So that's my position. Absolutely. So on a lighter note, lawyers earn both ways, whether even if it's pain or growth.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good position.